There's a one here. If we can get an official call to order, and then I can do roll call.
Thank you. Hit the call us to order. So yeah, let's kick it off. It's 6:30, 6:31. We'll get going with roll call.
All right. Dave Evans.
Dave's excused. He's abroad somewhere.
That's right. Jeff Selzer. Present. Ellie Honaker.
Here.
Eric Mills. John. Michael Blue. Tom Grant.
Cheers. So we're not gonna look over meeting minutes anymore. So that's a quick one. Which brings us right into the public comment section. And looks like we've got some interest in public comments. So the way we do it is you get your 3 minutes of fame to stand on the soapbox or step up to the. I don't know that it matters as long as we capture it. But whoever would like to start. Just introduce yourself and tell us where you live and what's on your mind.
It's totally bad.
Well, thank you all for listening. My name is Jonathan Slater. I moved to Littleton in 2013. I live in District 3 near Euclid Middle School. I'm an LPS parent. My family and I rely on walking, biking, and public transit, and the occasional car to navigate Littleton and the Front Range. I'd like to share an experience I had just last weekend. I volunteered at the Littleton's Farmers Market, located off Nevada Street, just off Main Street there. The street was closed from Main Street to Juniper Seed Mercantile. And after the market opened, all the volunteers gathered under a canopy enjoying coffee from Devil's Cup, and we had some breakfast burritos from Sincali. But what struck me was something I had not seen in a long time, a downtown Littleton free of cars. I watched moms biking with their babies, pulling up, catching up with friends gathering, people running into acquaintances. Folks from all levels of society slowed down and were present on the city street without the constant noise of cars or the need to stay alert for vehicles speeding through the running red lights downtown. People were relaxed and enjoyed themselves. Dog walkers paused so children could pet their furry friends. For the first time since the alfresco days of the Main Street during the pandemic, I felt comfortable being downtown. Main Street brought our community together. It's where we break bread and we toast to good health, a place where you can run into your neighbor and catch up. It should be a place where we all feel safe and comfortable walking around. However, after we closed the market, I walked to Main Street and was once reminded of the car sewer it is. With vehicles rushing through as fast as they can to get to Santa Fe, trying to cross Prince Street, I faced a car that didn't understand that confusing sign or the pedestrian right-of-way. Competing with car traffic it's just unpleasant. It makes me want to avoid downtown altogether. Here's my point. When you create spaces for people, people will be there. They can relax, they can enjoy the space, they can slow down, and they can all be present. I was impressed by the options presented at the Project Downtown Forum 2 months ago. The idea of transforming downtown into a space where people can safely walk, bike, roll without the noise and danger of car traffic, it's pretty exciting. I urge you to prioritize people over cars when making decisions to transform downtown Main Street. Additionally, we need safe ways for people to reach downtown without relying on a car. While Littleton boasts world-class trails and a vibrant downtown, accessing these areas safely without a car is a bit of a challenge. We want to ensure that those biking, walking, and rolling on our trail systems or our neighbors can connect to downtown safely without a car. It's inspiring to see our civic leaders here transforming our city into one that prioritizes people over cars. In closing, I thank you for the time you give serving our community, this board specifically. Let's make downtown Littleton a place where everybody can feel safe and welcome.
Hey, thanks a lot.
Thank you. Thank you. You practiced that.
That was amazing on time.
That was second, man. Well done.
All right, jump up.
Kind of set the bar high there, sorry. A little hazard.
Don't leave any time on the table.
Right.
So my name is Casey Gibson. I live in District 2, just south of Cornerstone Park. So I believe we have a huge opportunity to transform our downtown space with this project. Many cities can only dream about an opportunity like this, so we shouldn't take it lightly. The decisions we make about this project may feel like brave ones, especially when judged harshly in the court of public opinion. In the court of public opinion, perception outweighs reality. Perceptions are built on the biases, emotions, and thoughts of today, and rarely consider the future and the future or the needs of others. As the saying goes, the wisdom of today may be the folly of tomorrow. So how do we ensure the decisions we make now hold up to the test of time? How do you know you're doing the right thing when so many people are telling you or yelling at you that you're doing the wrong thing? The answer is to focus on and prioritize values that never go out of style. The values that seem most aligned and related to the mission of this project are community, safety, accessibility, and livability. So think forward in 30 years. How could people argue with choices backed by those values? Would anyone fault us for prioritizing livability and experience over traffic volumes and throughput? Would other downtown areas look to Littleton as a model of how to do it right? Would other cities praise us for prioritizing the people that live here over the people that pass through? If creating a safe, enjoyable, and accessible downtown space is our guiding light, the brave decisions of today don't feel so brave, they just feel right. Jonathan and I recently went down to the new Broadway protected bike lanes and pedestrian area south of Cherry Creek. And it was the first time I really truly felt safe riding around and navigating. And I ended up going to more businesses than I intended to because it was just so easy to get around. And I was realizing I had to ride 10 miles away from my own neighborhood to feel that safe. And then that same day, filed a police report for someone almost running me over on my own street with video that I now record on every ride. So I urge you to, when we're combining these designs for this project, to really focus on if we can reduce or remove as much traffic as possible and provide ample connection north, south, east, west for all bikes, pedestrians, and really make this like a world-class downtown that people want to visit from 10 miles away. That's it. Thank you.
12 seconds.
All right, good one, good
Wow,
one.
you left 10 seconds.
Wasted.
Yeah.
Wasted 10 seconds. Oh.
Please don't die. Too.
I didn't prepare a speech, but my name is Billy Gooch. I live in District 2 down near Jackass Hill and Heritage High. So my wife has some health issues and a disability, but you know, she's gotten into e-biking in the last year or two. I've gotten more active with Littleton Social Cycle and Vibrant Littleton. And you know, I just want to see Littleton become kind of a community that's you know, welcoming and has that small town feel. But you know, we rode out to Chatfield yesterday up the Mary Carter Greenway, and you know, with the e-bike, you know, that it only makes it as hard as she wants to make it on herself. So she's getting exercise that she probably wasn't getting before that. So anyway, she's not a very confident rider, but you know, we just need better trail system. I mean, I love the Highline Canal. We live right off of that. But you know, anything to improve the trail system, protected bike lanes, anything like that, just, you know, make Littleton a safe community where people feel welcome and able to get around however they so choose. So yeah, I'm just observing. This is my first time, so just getting a feel for it and just, again, trying to get more involved and see how the sausage gets made, I suppose.
Thanks, Billy.
Thank you.
Do you have anybody else that would like to comment? Oh, Pam. Step up.
I'm Pam Chedworth, a block and a half from here. So I agree with a couple of points made that we need to understand the impact of our decisions now on tomorrow. But I don't agree that cars are always the enemy, and I absolutely believe that we've got to first try to integrate all the needs and functions together, not prioritize one over the rest. And you know what? We are a principal east-west and north-south transit corridor. That's what we have in Littleton. It is actually a feature, not a bug. Having Santa Fe and Broadway is a huge asset. And you know, getting from east to west is hard in this part of the city. So we've got a plan for that. And I live downtown. So I'm just gonna point out that three speakers don't. If you live downtown, we are gentrifying downtown. We have replaced $250,000 homes with five $700,000 townhouses, and that is all we're doing. And that is unacceptable to me. And that is one of the features that goes along with these kind of, you know, nice dreams about what we could or might have. So I was impressed by the agenda tonight because you talk about discussion of how TMB meetings fit with other board meetings and how do Vision Zero Safe Streets and Complete Streets fits together. This is all about understanding the system as a collection of functions that must work together and are interdependent. And you've got to understand that by models and estimates from land use code. We don't have that. We don't have planners who have done that so far. TMB and the Transportation Mobility Plan is one of those functional models that we all must have to understand the impact of design decisions on the city. And that's possible to do. It's not impossible. People act as if it's not. If it's not possible, it is totally. We can figure out some impacts on vehicle throughput plus other alternate modes of transportation. So Littleton Boulevard Sub-Area Plan plus the downtown plan are not even integrated with each other. They're kind of economic development wish lists. They need to be integrated into the comprehensive plan, and we all need to understand the integrated impact of that on transportation. I'm going to suggest that if we prioritize bike and ped on Littleton Boulevard, we cut out the possibility of a trolley bus. I think a trolley bus from Broadway to Santa Fe, given, you know, other stuff, is a far better solution for Littleton Boulevard with bikes and peds on Powers, which you folks have discussed. And at one time, our development was supposed to be then Powers would get small scale neighborhood services and amenities along Powers as it redevelops. And the bikes and ped folks would get to go up and down there. Littleton Boulevard can remain a boulevard with a view of the mountains with small scale historic preservation. Different vision, very possible. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Pam. All right, well, I appreciate everybody coming down and sharing that with us. Remind me again what our decision-making authority, we don't have any decision-making authority, but we can consider it and advise council. And Robert, you're here as our council rep. Thank you for that. We really do appreciate your continued involvement in this.
My pleasure.
It provides the linkage that we need for ideas and recommendations back. So thanks for that. Let's move into downtown then. And there were some great slides provided on that linkage. Are we going to go through those now? Yeah, that's terrific. So,
and I wanted to give the floor first to Kelly, since she attended our stakeholder working group at all.
Did you get my, I emailed it all, but I thought it was gonna be shared last meeting.
Well,
Sorry.
That was the intent.
Okay,
It was
great.
not, so sorry to put you on the spot, but.
Okay, what did I write? Can we just read that? I mean, I have the notes here, but I think I was able to synthesize more.
well, you sent a nice video too.
The video was for the Vision Zero.
Okay, yeah.
Yep, but no, I wrote up from attending the stakeholder
Gotcha.
meeting, which preceded, I think, the public meetings for this kind of next iteration or review of the plans. But yeah, let's see. So, you know, there was an emphasis and reminder, if you will, right? This is like a 20 to 30 year vision, right? Yes, there we go. Thanks.
Very detailed.
Yes. Which for me was indeed a good reminder, because one could get excited by the plans and such, and it's gonna be a multi-phased endeavor. And we won't have it like that, whatever one we decide, or whatever, collaboration of them we put together. They're looking for adoption of the concept phase by council in August. And then design process would run around 9 to 12 months after. There was a little bit of input back on what they had heard to date from some of the community meetings. Reinforcing the downtown core, knit the district together, kind of referring to mobility, making it an iconic destination, and green streets. The president or the executive director of the Littleton Downtown District Authority came to speak on behalf of the DDA, and said that in general, they as a group are backing the village concept of the three, saying they prefer that one because of the incorporating elements of multimodal. He said there was some concern about getting input from the different adjacent property owners, and we should be thinking from business to business and not curb to curb. And then we were able to spend time kind of moving around as groups, looking at the three different concepts. For what it's worth, my sense, and we didn't do any voting or polling. Where did most people land?
This is the Chicano.
Thank you. Thank you. Was generally seemed to get the most kind of enthusiasm. But really, wanting to still emphasize, there were pieces, as I'm sure we all found looking at them, right? There, you'd want to pick out little bits from each one and and kind of make a whole new one. But that was the one that kind of bubbled up.
Did they talk much about financing, so that the DDA people are actually paying for some part of, is it just this study that they agreed to tax themselves for? Maybe you understand this and can explain it to me a little better, Kenna.
Yeah, the planning effort Project Downtown is fully funded by the city.
Okay.
The LDDA has their own taxing structure that will help pay for not infrastructure improvements, but more services type. So think of like snow plowing, street cleanup stuff.
They'll do the O and M, their operation and
So
maintenance.
O&M's all,
That's,
And that came up a little bit, not necessarily in terms of the funding, but just, in kind of the glance of the plans, right? Or like, okay, is this still, you get the necessary vehicles down the road this way, like an ambulance, say, or, things along those lines. And as well as, snow clearing and such. But not so much on who would.
well, I just was curious about that. And I don't know how much capital investment each of those involves. Do we have any sense, or is it way too early to even speak to that?
We don't have any cost estimates yet. We will have some high level cost estimates coming out of the preferred alternative, which will be presented in August. So we don't have any numbers tied to this right now. We're really trying to not look at it from a fiscally constrained outlook right now. We really want it to be the best concept for downtown, and then we will look at the financials and figure out how to phase it over time in order to make it work.
So you didn't try to say these are approximately similar investments, or is it like Sears used to do? Was it Sears good, better, best?
Yeah, they're
Some are a lot more gold bricked than
right.
others.
I would say on a surface level, I would say they're probably relatively similar.
Okay, just that's enough. at the concept phase, you know,
Yeah.
concept development, that's all I was kind of looking for. So as we go through this, I'm trying to, that'll help, Robert?
So, what I'm learning is that it's really gonna be a 3 or 4 step process. And so the first step is gonna be agreeing to the plan, and the plan will outline future investments, but the investments will be sequential, like we'll do one set and then we might decide to spend money on Kettering Park, and then we'll do another set and we'll spend money on Broadway. And so what's gonna happen is we're gonna pick a plan and then we're gonna prioritize what part of that plan we do first. And I think that's gonna be almost as important as which plan we pick, is which priority within the plan we do. We currently have, right now, penciled in 10 million, which I think at best is gonna be a third of the, at best, a third of what we're gonna need to spend. And so, quite frankly, for all the plans that we've talked about, the value, I think you guys are, or the place where your voice is gonna be really important is helping to prioritize within the plans. I mean, it's important to pick a plan. That'll be a really important first step, but then the work is not over.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I would say these 3 concepts, the project team really tried to create different ideas through each concept. So yeah, it wasn't based off of costing or phasing. It was really like, let's identify 3 different types of concepts that we can present. And then the ultimate preferred alternative can be a blend of these. So like, you know, the chicane on Main is not, what's presented here is not going to necessarily be the final alternative. You could have a blend of all. So there's opportunities here.
And remind me again of the guiding objective that we're trying to get to. Is it economic vitality? Is it economic vitality balanced with some quality of life enhancement? What were the guiding principles that are keeping us on track?
There's values, right?
Presumably, we're doing this to achieve an objective, and I just wanted to refresh our memory on that.
So, but part of it was also, we attempted to be, the city has attempted to be kind of exploiting an opportunity, and the opportunity was the development of the water main. Since Denver Water had to rebuild this after the water main was put in, we're like, well, let's have a better design for rebuild than just replacing everything that was there. Unfortunately, those 2 things have been separated now. And so the Denver Water the Denver Water replacement of the water main is not gonna be aligned with the plan or putting in place the plan. And so they've kind of been separated. And so what that partially means is that whatever improvements we do are all on our dime, and we're not gonna be able to use, we don't believe we're gonna be able to use Denver Water's rebuilding dime to help.
I love their dime.
Yeah, but I think part of it is the plan was created in an opportunistic way. We might have this opportunity to use Denver Water's resources to make things better. And unfortunately, that opportunity didn't quite come to fruition, but so we're gonna end up with, we're gonna have a plan. And again, then we're gonna have to prioritize amongst the plans that we have for the city.
When's that water main gonna be done now?
Good question. Let's talk to
The Q1 of 2025 is when they'll start. And so they estimate that it's gonna take 8 to 12 weeks is what we're kind of guessing. Of course, it's all weather dependent, right? You start in January, who knows how the weather's gonna affect you, but and what it is there's an 8-inch line on the south side of Main Street that they'll be replacing and then tying all those service lines back into the buildings.
So there exists the possibility that we'll wind up having to dig up again some of the stuff that they just reburied.
No, it'll be a one-shot deal. Once they upgrade their facilities, they can have to come back and.
None of these 3 concepts are gonna wind up causing us to dig up streets again.
Well, Oh,
Yes.
Yes, it will. Not that underground utility, that particular underground utility, yeah.
We'll go much shallower, I assume.
Right, I mean, if we're in a, whatever concept, right, is gonna have an effect on Main Street. If it's the chicane on Main Street, obviously, they'll be having to put in some, bigger median type things and that kind of stuff that,
All right,
it'll tear Main Street up.
okay, gotcha.
The water main is what, 10 feet under?
And
Oh,
those are the
more.
values, I think.
That's
that-
what
All water mains.
These are the project goals.
What we're trying to accomplish.
All right.
These were developed in tandem with the LDDA's goals of development.
All right, good. So that gives us some good orientation and I appreciate that, just revisiting that so that as we look at these things, we can ask ourselves, are we, if that's sort of, our objective and our North Star, are we, which of those gives us the best, alignment and maximizes those?
And this is the overall plan purpose, so it hits on a lot of those things of preservation of historic character, economic vitality, fiscal constraints, trends, technologies, urban design and stormwater management, best practices, partnerships, and community interests.
Thank you, Kenna.
All right, you ready to get into it?
I am.
So there's three main concepts that were developed for this phase. So there's the chicane on Main, which, as you can see, Main Street becomes kind of this curvy type cross section, and there's some good examples. Downtown Grand Junction actually is something similar. So if you want to Google photos of that. I can talk a little more about how it's similar and different from Grand Junction. The network is really focused on multimodal connectivity. So as you can see here, there's some emphasis on Little's Creek. All of these also have a north-south main kind of multimodal corridor. So on the first two, it's Prince Street. On this last one, it's Nevada. And then this village concept is really about knitting together kind of all the different parts of downtown. With an emphasis kind of in the main area on Main Street, and then, like I said, Nevada and Little's Creek. So I guess any questions, or should we just dive into each one?
Yeah, one quick question I have is like, for instance, the middle one, the network, it has blue going in both directions. On the right one, it just has the orange red on Main. I'm assuming that the other road Alamo will still exist. So like, what is the difference between, let's say, is it Alamo? Yeah, Alamo. on
Yeah.
The middle one and Alamo on the right one. That's,
Yeah, the network is really focusing on both connectivity to downtown and within downtown, so I think that's why they're showing each. So Littleton Boulevard, you can go over to the Mary Carter Greenway here. I
that's all.
wouldn't spend too much time trying to dissect these colors necessarily.
Yeah, and that's already, to some extent.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
It's hard to differentiate between these, just the colors, but we can dive in and maybe we'll be able to describe.
So chicane on Main, so we call them big ideas. So the chicane creates a dynamic social space activating the street. And we can zoom in here a little more too as we keep going. So that's where it's kind of this weaving pattern going back and forth along Main. Enhanced streetscape on Alamo, and then Prince Street mobility and traffic calming enhancements. So here's the plan view. I obviously don't know how to use this. So yeah, it's kind of this weaving pattern where you start, straight like Main Street is now, and then it starts to kind of weave back and forth, which both creates traffic calming and then allows for more of these larger gathering spaces when it curves away. So it creates these opportunities for social plazas. You can have furnishings there. You can have play areas potentially. With, green space and planters are on all of these as well. Some specialty lighting. And here's the cross section. So, at the largest part of the chicane, one section would have about 20 feet of space. Which is far different from the sometimes 5 foot that we have downtown right now. an 8-foot amenity zone. So this amenity zone would include trees and some of that stormwater, green infrastructure type stuff. And then on the other side, you know, the minimum would still be a 10-foot sidewalk, so still an improvement from what's out there today.
Well, if I was a property owner down there, I'd want the 20-foot section in front of my place.
Skyrocket your value.
Yeah, because I could do a lot with that and put a lot of tables out. I wonder how that's gonna be an interesting, somebody else gets to wear that striped shirt, not me,
Well,
but.
they can't encroach on it with all the people. It's also intended as,
So it's a public space, not a, you couldn't,
that's
you
my,
couldn't serve a baguette
impression.
and a cup of coffee there, huh?
well, I would take it, but yeah, that's
Well,
my
you're bold.
impression. And then also on this, you know, there's no designated or protected bike lanes. So, you know, in our comments was to make sure on whichever kind of corresponding streets, you know, parallel streets there could be. Because I think we were seeing this almost as the closest way of doing like a pedestrian only street without obviously a pedestrian only street.
Where would you leave your bike? If you
That-
rode your bike downtown?
Yeah, I mean, then that was also a discussion point of, you know, needing more, bike storage, more sophisticated bike storage, lockers, stuff like that at like all of those key kind of connecting points. Yeah, I mean, it would be those like 4 blocks essentially that would, I mean, we didn't go so far as to say like bikes would be banned, but I think my impression is they'd have to ride in the street.
I'll let those guys hear that.
And all of this new space is provided by removing parking on Main, is that right?
Yeah, there's still some, I don't think any of the plans eliminated it entirely.
But significantly reduced.
Yes, to some extent.
Doesn't look like there's any there, does it, Jeff?
There's some parking here, so it kind of varies throughout.
I see. Couple spots or.
Yeah, so all of these reduce parking in some sense. The level of how much they reduce parking varies by concept. But yeah, Kelly's right, and you know, I think these are things that we'll have to figure out as we have a preferred alternative of, yes, how are bikes interacting on Main Street? Is it a dismount zone? Is it?
Right, that's kind of how it
Right.
was interpreting this is that little section is like a
Street only.
Yeah, but yeah, bike parking is definitely a part of, you know, an amenity that's needed to be provided downtown, same as benches and those types of things as well, so. Any other questions, comments?
Connery on Main Street.
All right, let's keep going. And then, yeah, here's just some precedent photos of what it could look like. So, you know, there could be benches with planters here, so you're really protected from the on-street traffic. You know, there could be some art elements included in all of these as well. So here's
kind
a,
of like elements, was that what that is?
yeah, some like play elements. Here's kind of a zoomed in up close. You could really see what, you know, these more plaza type areas could be with the planters, you know, providing protection from traffic. And then there is still some parking along here as well. And then, you know, overhead lighting, whether it's string lighting or some other type of more ornamental lighting as well. And so the second big idea of part of the chicane on Main is Alamo Street. So Alamo would still be 2 lanes of traffic and there would still be parking maintained on the north side of the street. But there is more pedestrian space as well and more streetscape improvements with lighting and green infrastructure. And then curb extensions at each intersection as well, which was also included on the Main Street concept as well. So you can see here the section. So sidewalk would be about 7 feet on each side with a 6-foot amenity zone. 8-foot parking, and then travel lanes. So here we talked about some gateway opportunities. So there's a variety of gateways, you know, you can do overhead gateways, like think of like downtown Golden is a good example, or you can do more of this artistic type lighted gateways. So that's also stuff we're exploring as well. And then, yeah, marking intersections with some more special paving and benches to call attention to that. And then Prince Street would have protected bike lanes, both north and southbound. And we're also trying to show how to protect these intersections as best as possible for bicyclists. And then how to incorporate curb extensions with the bike lane. So trying to balance both peds, bikes, and cars along Prince. So here's a cross section here.
For east-west, where would someone ride their bike scenario?
I mean,
That's where we were then saying, we were picking up one of the pieces from one of the other two concepts and adding it, because I think the other two have more east-west bike.
Where do people ride east-west now?
Dangerously, you know, I would say.
Little's Creek is an
Is
option.
Little's Creek a good or a bad option or?
It's an option, it's.
I feel like it's away from, like, you know, the idea of placemaking kind of is having you be right there and, you know, that's kind of funneling you away. It'd be great if that was activated Little's Creek, you know, but it's, I don't go through Little's Creek very often when I ride through there. Yeah.
It's good if you're going to the Mary Carter Greenway, but not so much to downtown, I think. Is that your point?
Yeah, well, like, if it's placemaking and bringing people to support those businesses and all of those things, you know, I'm just thinking, how are we getting those people on the bicycles to those businesses?
Is it, are you riding your bike to downtown or through downtown?
I was, in this scenario, I was thinking two, you know, like, if you're going to one of the restaurants, you know, on Main, how are you getting there? You know, and the north-south, like Prince seems really good. That seems like that would be a wild improvement, you know, but as soon as you go to take a left, you know, then you're blocking traffic, you know.
I think at this point, it's, you get off and park your bike, I think, when you get to Main Street on, I mean, I think that's what the plan is there.
As a destination.
Yeah, right.
Not driving through,
Destination,
yeah.
Yeah. And I guess the enhancement, the enhancement of Prince Street would give you pretty good connectivity to the Lee Gulch Trail, which I care about since I'm way out southeast. And that would give a bicycle artery that would connect with something. So, you know, that might help a little bit. But again, I think to your point, you're going there and leaving your bike somewhere, which is good. That's a whole different hurdle we gotta figure out.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
yeah, no, and you're right, there's benefits and challenges to each of these concepts, right? So we'll talk about the network, which really is focused on that, like multimodal connectivity both to and through downtown, which the last concept was more about placemaking, pedestrian experience. And it's like, yeah, you have to get to Prince to then get to Main Street, right?
Yeah.
Right, and I guess just to add on that, we're applying for a grant through Dr. Cog to study, it's 8 different corridors, right? So like Powers and Cayley, Ridge, so those are all east-west connections, right? To be able to get downtown in the future. I mean, these concepts obviously are just focused mostly on downtown, but we do have a bigger kind of picture in mind with the entire city.
Yeah, great.
Yeah, and there will be future Slaughterhouse Gulch improvements that will also go across the railroad tracks. That will be a new east-west connection. And then we are doing the Prince Street Link project, which is making improvements on Prince all the way down to Lake. So that connects to the community trail. So yeah, not direct connections, which I know is kind of what you were getting to, but.
Right, it might not be Littleton Boulevard, but maybe it's Powers, or maybe it's, you know, one of the other streets in that area that go east-west.
So the network really is focused on that multimodal connectivity. So the big ideas here So Main Street would have a protected bike lane as well as a main streetscape. Alamo would also have an improved pedestrian experience with a bike lane. And then east-west bike connections to these.
Are those bike lanes, bi-directional?
No.
Okay. So it's with the flow of traffic, so it's gonna be westbound on Main and eastbound on Alamo.
Correct.
Okay.
And then Prince Street mobility and traffic calming enhancements, similar to the chicane on Main. So here you can see, on the north side of the street is where that protected bike lane would be. And there is probably, and then parking on the south side, there are some areas where we've kind of jutted out into the parking lane to create more of those social spaces and gathering spaces still. And then at intersections, that's where there's some special treatment. There could be special paving, some overhead string lights. And then still like the planters and green infrastructure as well to help protect pedestrians on the sidewalk from the oncoming traffic. So we can look at the cross section here. So still very large sidewalks, so 10-foot and 8-foot, which again is an improvement from what's out there today. A little bit of a smaller amenity zone, so about 5 feet, a 7-foot bike lane with a 3-foot buffer, and then 2 travel lanes and a parking lane. So this is kind of an idea of what it could look like with, at those jutted out places. Where there could still be some seating and the planters as well.
Is this like Brighton in Rhino? Is this like Brighton?
Brighton Boulevard?
Yeah, it kind of has a similar, it has the bike lane on the sidewalk, like up on there.
Yeah, a little bit similar. I think that there's better separation between pedestrians and bikes in this version versus.
Yeah.
It's just paint and on.
Yeah, I think there's different pavement treatments, but yeah, when there's a lot of cyclists there, if you're walking, like, and, someone flies by you, it can feel a little dicey if you have little kids who tend to.
So that actually came as a concern, in reviewing this one, so people said, well, like, my son, whatever, he'll run into anything, it doesn't matter, but like, it's like, wait, are the bikers really coming like right up next to us? Because, if they are treating it as a through, it's like, does that interrupt the leisurely strolling of, a family or something? But it does look like it has some decent separation.
Yeah, so in this cross section, we're showing it at grade street level, but there would be a raised buffer. I would say that is a design detail that could always change if this is the selected concept in the future of raising it to be on level with pedestrians. But this does have more space than the Brighton Boulevard example, because that example, it's like there's heads and there's bikes right next to each other.
And if the DDA has to do the operations and maintenance, do they get to go out there and shovel those bike lanes?
They sure
That's the
do.
hope for us, I think.
Yeah, right.
So yeah, here's kind of the enhanced plan view. With the protected bike lane and the protection and then the streetscape and then these, seating areas here as well.
We're also excited for those trees to be back.
Yeah, that's kind of a cool,
This large of a
concept.
canopy, you didn't.
Looks good.
So much just.
And for placemaking, which is one of the first goals that were listed in the goals, like, if it looks like both of these could have the string lights going across the street and everything, so it would be magical in this winter time and things.
Yeah, you were talking about the archway coming in. I mean, those lights used to provide a really nice archway, as the entrance as you came down Main Street. And it would be nice to look forward to a time where that happened again, especially at winter seasons.
I feel like so the plans that have been presented have moved away from lights across the street. And they're moving towards these overhead elements. Which are more like artistic installations than what we've been used to in the past or what's in Larimer Square.
Staff could still string lights across those, right? Yeah.
I'm sure we could.
Yeah.
Or maybe they could light that up too,
Yeah, best of both worlds, maybe, yeah.
I'm not, the other thing is, even if this is the plan that we agree to, overhead elements, we could still scrap this component of the plan and say, you know, make this into Larimer Square.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I don't,
I mean, by the time it
Fiber
comes to
squares.
development of that component,
Yeah.
you know, it's like 20 years down the road, so there could be something totally new and different.
yeah, I mean, I don't love those wind sails, but that's just me. I don't know, lights or something that add a certain evening ambiance that I think is,
There's a member of my household that went to San Juan in Puerto Rico and they have umbrellas. She thinks that's fantastic. Someone in my household is that.
I do think it's an opportunity to pick the best from each option.
yeah, and that's the cool thing. And I know there'll be a lot of discussion on that and no shortage of opinions.
That's exactly right, yeah.
Yeah, so Alamo is similar with a bike lane, eastbound, westbound, eastbound. On the south side of the street, and then parking is removed. In order to accommodate the protected bike lane and the green infrastructure improvements, streetscape, and still some of these social spaces here, to gather and linger. Again, creating more of these protected intersections and bulb outs, for pedestrians as well.
Almo's a lot of private parking lots right now, isn't it? So it'd be really nice if that was activated, you know, to something a bit more useful than the private parking lot potentially too.
So yeah, sidewalks, 7 and 8 feet, amenity zone about 5 feet, 11-foot travel lanes, and then a 7-foot bike lane with a 2-foot buffer. So again, here's some examples of what seating with, you know, a planted buffer could look like. One here as well. East-west bike connections. So here's one of those overhead gateway treatments I was talking about. So they're proposing one here at the entrance of the Santa Fe and Bowles intersection. And then some more on this other side as well. And so these bike lanes would go across the bridges, and then it would be determined of what happens to them through future planning efforts on Littleton Boulevard. So here's an example too, with a planted buffer. And then Prince Street, it's very similar to the chicane on Main. So 8, 9-foot sidewalks, 6-foot bike lanes, 3-foot buffers, and then travel lanes.
And that would extend from where? Just from Alamo to,
So from Church
okay, all the way from Church?
all the way up. So we have plans for bike lanes on Prince right now through the Santa Fe and Prince intersection. So it connect with those.
Okay.
And then we have our Prince Street Link project, which is adding bike lanes to Prince south of Church. So it connect between Santa Fe and Church. Dad.
The bike lanes, we're actually gonna go to Alamo with Prince Street Link.
Thank you. Yes. So it would be the missing gap, basically, through downtown. Again, here's some gateway elements. Here's a bike lane. So, you know, in this example, you know, it's really just like a stamped concrete buffer between like the ped space and the bike space. Just as a potential option. All right, any other questions, comments on the network? All right, so the village is the third concept. So the first big idea here is enhanced pedestrian oriented Main Street. For temporary closure in these main 2 blocks here. Big idea 2 is a shared street along Nevada that would connect to Little's Creek and would have a pedestrian focus. And this also connects to one of the I guess recommended projects in our comprehensive plan, which is called the Heart Walk. Heritage, art. I might have missed any. Recreation. Tourism, thank you. That was a recommendation from the comp plan in 2019. And then big idea 3 is enhance Little's Creek. That creates a new trail experience with naturalized drainage way and social spaces for people. So the enhanced streetscape on Main So again, creating a lot of these larger social spaces here by jutting into the parking lane, you know, for benches, seating, play areas. There still is parking along Main Street, but you know, some of it is taken away to add to the pedestrian experience. Here we're talking about raised intersections at these three intersections, so Curtis, Nevada, and Prince.
So it'd be like a table and up and then down?
Correct. And then in these two blocks, there would be specialized paving that would go across the entire street. So it wouldn't just be along like the sidewalks, it would go across the whole thing. Again, specialty lighting, bump outs at all of the intersections to really increase pedestrian visibility. And then the cross section here. So about 9 feet on each side with an amenity zone, you know, with the trees and infrastructure, parking lanes, and then 2 travel lanes. And so, you know, we've talked in previous about how, you know, we've shut Main Street down for special events in the summer and whatnot. So the idea is that you could shut down these 2 special blocks, I guess you would call them, for events in the summer. Here's another example of that.
There was a comment that the raised crossings might prohibit the criterion, or whatever.
Yeah, criterion.
That's good.
Get
a little air as they go around.
Yeah, might not use it.
A little fun fact.
Or
Um,
the criterium like a BMX race, and I don't know.
There you go. Be one of a kind.
Yeah.
It's been on things. So yeah, that.
And the criterium closes an additional lane, additional block to the right as well. It goes all the way to, forgetting the name.
Rio Grande.
Yeah, Rio Grande. Yeah.
Yeah, there were some folks from the DDA and a couple of merchants, you know, that were a little perplexed of why the specialization and special attention to just these blocks of Main Street, saying, what if I'm on that block of Main Street? And we
It's a fair
kind of,
question.
it is, we kind of lean that too, like, I don't really know, and, you know, I don't think the other plans prohibit, street closure, right? Like, that could still take place. I mean, I guess actually, we didn't even talk about the impact of the curved road or the criterion, that probably also would not be ideal.
Can I ask, all 3 of these maintain 2 lanes of auto traffic down Main? Was there any consideration given at all to looking at a concept where it was only 1 lane of auto traffic through down Main?
So we originally looked, because in our first phase of engagement, we heard a lot about closing Main Street completely, turning it into more of like a pedestrian mall, like 16th Street Mall. So we did some traffic analysis, and I guess let me find a zoomed out photo downtown. We did some analysis and trying to turn Alamo into 2-way with this, what we call an S-curve here. There was a lot of right-of-way impacts on very historic, like the oldest buildings in downtown. And we just deemed it unfeasible. In terms of the 1 lane, we have had conversations with South Metro Fire Rescue, and they do require 20 unobstructed feet. So that's 2 travel lanes, basically. I mean, we've had the conversation, but realistically, we've moved forward with 2 travel lanes still.
It looks like the third option is 4 lanes for cars, because there's 2 parking, there's parking on both sides. So that looks like, you know, just a couple of slides back.
But I don't think that's all the way through, was it? That's just in certain places that,
Correct.
other places they had taken those for amenity zones.
Yeah, like in the 2 special blocks, it wouldn't, it does have some of it, but just those little parking spots, but for some of it, it would be 4 lanes wide.
In some places, yes.
Yeah.
The cross section would indicate that.
That's a lot. If your top goal is placemaking. That's a lot of real estate dedicated, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the balance is how much parking do you want on Main Street?
Is there a requirement to have ADA accessible parking and that sort of thing? Like, is there a minimum number of spots that we?
I don't know if there's any requirements, but that is something that we talked about as a project team, is wanting to maintain a very minimum, at least, accessible parking. Then you also have to think about loading and unloading as well. I mean, we do have alleys, but a lot of that happens on the street side as well, so.
And I know ADA does require you to have so many, designated parking spots, and I don't remember off the top of my head what that is, but I know we touched on it in ADA transition plan.
It looks like all the plans had, pockets of parking. Good, it'd be nice if, this is gonna be an unpopular opinion, but I think it would be nice if Main Street parking became paid. And that the funds went to help fund the DDA, and didn't placemaking. That could be really great too.
Yes, and I will mention that a parking management plan is definitely needed coming out of this project downtown. With any of these concepts, we are removing parking on, I guess, all of downtown. If you think about Main, Alamo, Prince, Nevada, depending on what the preferred alternative is. So, from our existing conditions analysis, we looked at all of parking downtown, and while, yes, there's times that parking on Main and Alamo are full, for the majority of the time, there's plenty of parking downtown, so. Yeah, it's a parking management strategy would look at how do we utilize existing parking. Maybe you don't get to park right in front of the restaurant you're going to. But how do you get people to park further away and walk and whatnot, so.
One day I took out a Home Depot over in Bellevue, the parking lot and the Home Depot, and superimposed it on top of Main Street. And if you parked like halfway across the parking lot and went to the back of the store, you've walked like 3 or 4 blocks, it's like people have this idea that like, I can't walk a block, but if you go to Home Depot or the mall, you walk like a half a mile.
Right.
So.
Well, I think that's also part of it too, is like, how do you create an inviting streetscape that you don't mind walking a couple blocks?
Yes,
Because
yeah.
it's such a pleasant walk to the restaurant on Main Street that you're going to. And, we do partner with ACC during specific events downtown to utilize their parking. Is talk about underutilized parking.
Oh, yeah. It's
Nights and weekends, yeah. Summers, so there's not a lack of parking downtown. There's just not necessarily parking in front of every single business for every customer, so. Yeah, ADA spots are definitely something that we need to keep in mind to, also think about people that are more mobility impaired. Yeah, Matt, I get what you're saying with the 2 parking lanes and the 2 travel lanes, and that's something that we as a team have really, we have investigated and have looked at, and, even talking with South Metro, if I ask you, it's like, well, if you have 1 lane of traffic and then you want a protected bike lane, that protection limits, that's not the 20 foot of spacing that you need. You need unobstructed space, and so.
Some ways, like I've seen some instances where they use the bike lane as the emergency access for the emergency vehicles. Because if cars are never allowed in there, if there's traffic, they can't, it takes them forever to honk their horn and get through back-to-back traffic. I wouldn't say downtown Littleton's ever that bad of traffic, we're kind of fortunate, but they could just go down, but I don't think any of these plans have a bike lane that's that wide, so.
Right. And then if you have a raised buffer, right?
But that would be the issue, the raised buffer, that would, hard to get a fire truck to swing wide enough to do that.
It'd be intriguing, because if there was bike lanes going both directions, we could just have a wider bike lane, and that could be wide enough for a fire truck to go through, but yeah, just thoughts,
Yeah. So yeah, again, showing different, play areas that could happen, or parklets in these gathering spaces. So the next big idea is a shared street on Nevada that connects Little's Creek with Arapahoe Community College. And so when we say shared street, we mean really, really low traffic volumes, which Nevada's already a dead end, right? It dead ends at Little's Creek. So we felt like it was a great opportunity to do a shared street. There's tons of examples of these in more of like a European context where the road really is shared between both vehicles, bicycles, pedestrians. And so you want the volume on these streets really low, right? Because you don't want that much interaction with vehicles. And like I said, we felt like Nevada was a good option for this because it dead ends. And it would include specialty pavers as well, to indicate the shared street. And then I mentioned the Heart Walk, so this could really be an opportunity for a lot of public art. Again, really bringing people up from the south, from ACC up to downtown. See, did I miss anything? Again, there would be, tree infrastructure and green infrastructure here as well. A new crossing of Little's Creek that would have more of a place to stop and look at the views as well. And I will say one thing and a big recommendation that we heard from our public engagement in this last round is let's bring this up to Main Street. So that's something that we are investigating and something I'm personally pushing for.
What does that mean?
Is that pavers or?
Yeah, to bring the shared street all the way up to Main Street, because we're showing, the block between Alamo and Main
Oh, yeah.
would be more of just a typical street with bike lanes, but bringing up, the specialty paving and that shared street aspect all the way to Main.
So are there painted lines on the shared, it's nothing, it's just
No.
literally open for anybody?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So here's an example. Here,
Could go down.
Car can just drive down?
Is that right? A car could go down that previous one?
I was at that other one 2 weeks ago.
yeah, this is in Denver.
That one doesn't have a lot of traffic, but yeah, I was there. It doesn't have a lot of traffic. It doesn't have a lot of pet traffic either. It's kind of just, it had those big things, those big orange things are actually swings.
Oh, that's fun.
The swing is between the main pillars. You can't really see it, but it's like a porch swing there.
Tips for taking out pedestrians as they come by.
Well, there was, yeah.
And typically shared streets are curbless, so there's not a curb between, where like the typical sidewalk area is and the typical travel area.
And so the thought is because Nevada doesn't go all the way through, you're not gonna get much car traffic in there unless it's just a local trip, somebody.
Right.
Gotcha.
Right, you're not going through, you're
Right.
on there for a specific reason.
Yeah.
And you design it in a way that makes traffic have to go slow.
Yeah.
You're not able to speed. You are there at the whim of the pedestrians there and the bicyclists there. And then enhance Little Creek. So I'm actually gonna share this section first. So, right now Little's Creek is very,
Like the big culvert in Terminator 2, race down the culvert, thing feels a bit like that.
yeah, we'll go channelize our master. So this is really trying to naturalize it a little more, so it's not just, like manicured grass, but more of that natural landscape, adding more trees in, and then creating more of an elevated multi-use trail instead of the existing path that's there. And then there would also be more of a pedestrian path here. And again, we are discussing as a team, are these crossings at grade? Are they? I think they're probably at grade, but we are looking into could they be like grade separated? But really make Little's Creek an enhancement of downtown and not just what it is today.
Floodplain.
Yeah, I like it. I feel like it could be an element to any of the concepts though. So maybe that's an option to.
It was really popular.
Yeah.
Everyone wanted, that was actually the sentiment, was like, well, whatever, make sure you do this too, put it on.
That would really, if we extended the Main Street feel on those other streets, Alamo and then activated Little's Creek, that would be amazing from a financial foundation, you know, for the city, I feel like.
And you know, we have talked too of like right now, these buildings, their backs are really turned to Little's Creek, so in Nevada to an extent. So, you know, if we go forward with this concept, you know, what does that look like in the future for more economic community development of, you know, how do we activate these spaces from the building standpoint too? But yeah, opportunities for like play areas with the creek potentially, integrating public art as well. So that's all the concepts. I don't know, we can go back and talk about a specific one or.
I was just curious for the Little Creek portion, does Littleton have right of way through there? Cause at the west end, when it gets close to Dish, it looks like it's kind of their property through some of it.
You know, there are some constraints, but we have a really good relationship with Ditch, for the trail through that area.
Okay.
My assumption too, if it was being activated, it would become less of a encampment, you know, probably as well. And so Dish would probably be incentivized, you know, to work with the city to.
Plus that you can go down and see the rocket.
Oh, yes.
The booster, I guess.
Dish has been a participant on our stakeholder working group as well.
I mean, all of these would be better. You know, so, like, there's, it's encouraging, you know, in any direction.
Has there been any concern about historic impacts, if that's the right term?
Yes, I would say from, yes, some of our historic groups in Littleton that are also on our stakeholder working group, they have brought up some concerns and that we're definitely working within those. So, you know, one comment that's been brought up of like, well, I don't know if you can hang string lights on our historic facades, but there's solutions to that. You can put poles and attach the string lights. So, you know, those are things as we go through design, that's definitely gonna come more into play, I would say. But yeah, that is something we're aware of, and especially as I think we go through and start to really look at like our design palette and what materials you're using, and we have a wayfinding consultant as well, and we're looking at different signage options of what really fits within the context of downtown Littleton and the historic nature, you know, and not necessarily going in and doing something like super modern and sleek, because that's not necessarily the feel of downtown. So really trying to, yeah, pick materials and design elements that fit within that historic context and represents downtown Littleton, so.
I feel like the chicane is the farthest departure from our historic setting compared to the other two, just because of that weaving. And I haven't been in the Grand Junction example. I guess it's pretty amazing. People that have seen it, but that one's tough for me to picture in our downtown.
Yeah, and I will say, you know, the one thing about downtown Grand Junction is that they have a very set grid. And so their main street is, you know, this nice curvy chicane.
Okay.
And then all the streets around it can act more as like that throughput. Whereas, you know, downtown Littleton is just a very interesting place between the lack of east-west connections that we have in Santa Fe and the railroad, and trying to balance.
It's a tough one.
Yeah, wanting to make it a place for people to come and gather, but also recognizing that cars do move through there, and how much do you wanna keep that or take away from it, and what does that balance look like, so.
I don't know this, but I would assume that Broadway moves way more cars than Littleton Boulevard through Main Street. And, you know, when it gets to downtown Englewood, cars slow down and it gets very narrow and it gets pedestrianized, you know, and that doesn't seem to be a huge obstacle in Englewood for Broadway, which presumably has higher traffic loads than Main Street, so.
Yeah.
Seems possible.
Yeah, I think so too. Any other comments?
No, I think that's great. Thank you, Kenna.
Yeah.
It's a good overview. I feel a lot more comfortable with those, and just remind us of the next decision gates and the next opportunities for public commentary and input on this.
Actually present this slide. So yeah, we are looking at finalizing our preferred alternative, so we're taking comments from our virtual public meeting, our in-person open house, our online survey, the stakeholder working group, our city council presentation. We've met with the LDDA, so we've done a bunch of engagement in this last phase, and we're taking all of that and working on a preferred alternative that we will then present to council, I believe in
I think
late
it's
August. Yeah. And then from there, we're already working on getting our contracting up and ready so that we can move seamlessly into design. And we're working with, GMGC, I think that's what it's called. I'm talking about.
We are working with, yes, with a consultant to,
Yeah.
yeah, kind of a seamless integration of design and construction.
Thank you, Brett.
CM.
Is this, like in August, when you all presented to council, is council voting ultimately on which one we choose, or who's actually choosing which one?
So we'll be presenting one preferred alternative that will have incorporated all of our.
And that's staff choosing that, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
Is the expectation that our board will make a recommendation as well, or is this our input, what we're doing now?
Yeah, I mean, I think coming out of this meeting, if you have a specific recommendation, I will bring that back to the project team. And then, when we go back to council, that next round of engagement with our preferred alternative, I can definitely talk through it again and bring any recommendations back to the project team then as well. So there's still time for input.
So Councilmember Reichert, would that be an appropriate thing to discuss at the joint TMB council meeting?
Absolutely. If there's a, I mean, I've heard a lot of good ideas here, but I haven't heard a unified, this is what the TMB thinks. So, but absolutely, and I will, if there is a unified, I mean, I've heard really good ideas, but I haven't heard we all think you should do this. If you, that I would on my own, but you guys could also do it during the joint meeting.
And do we think that's gonna be next meeting cycle, that we'll have the joint meeting? When do we think we might?
So I'm learning, so the council takes 4 to 6 weeks off in June and July.
Okay,
So I think our current idea of when we're gonna meet is late July, when the council kind of spins back up. And so I won't be here for the next meeting in June because I'll be gallivanting.
We could potentially meet in June.
Yeah, no, you guys can, yeah.
and I think it would be good for us to spend some time kicking it around, because everybody's offered opinions, and we've said there's elements of different plans that appeal to us, and so it might be nice to spend more of the next meeting
And you don't, and you can,
processing this.
you can say, I like this part of that and this part. You don't have to pick one and say, we want the village.
So we are actively working on the final alternative. So I would say if there's elements from these three concepts that you want to talk about, to have me bring back to the project team, now is the time to bring.
Okay,
And we could push some of our agenda items to accommodate that if you guys feel strong. Like, our next agenda item is talking about joint meetings and stuff. There's one we need to talk about, which is the joint meeting with council that Councilman Riker referred to. But we could push the other stuff to a later meeting if you guys wanted to discuss that here. It's of course up to the.
And I do want to have like 2 minutes of comments that I want to give you before.
well, why don't we get your comments and then,
Well, my comments are not on this. It's totally different things. It's more of a report out.
oh, okay.
Not comments on this, sorry.
Yeah. Well, I guess I would like to ask then, Michael, you mentioned of the three options, the chicane seemed the least congruous with the feel and function.
Correct.
And I would second that. I don't think that feels like it would work with the downtown as well. And I certainly like the elements of the Littles Creek activation, I guess that's a way to put it. So I think whichever one we pick, I like that. And aside from that, I think either the network or the village could work, but I'd like to get other people to weigh in. And Kelly, maybe you could, having been as close to it as anybody, with some thoughts on what you think. It sounds like this is our time to weigh in on.
Make a recommendation as a
Yeah,
board.
yeah,
or
yeah.
one.
yeah.
No, I mean, like I said, it was funny, I think there was a lot of enthusiasm around the chicane.
Chicane,
I think it's interesting too, because we like looked at them on, like, honestly, even just how you look at them makes a difference, right? So we had like big boards up and you could get nice and close, and it does, right? It changes. So, I think we got very excited about all of the gathering space that, that was coming with the chicane option. And again, like I said, it felt the most pedestrian focused, I think. But, there's maybe some practical elements that make it, not perhaps the best.
And it doesn't have the ability to incorporate the protected bike lanes the way the other ones do.
No, no.
And I think that's, in my view of things, that might be less desirable. I mean, I guess in terms of a destination, it's great to have all those gathering spots. But it would also be nice to be able to move through there and get there on bicycles and get closer. So.
Yeah, it has a more of a, like you were saying, impression of take your bikes to get here, then get off your bike and stay here, kind of, right?
Right.
But if we don't support in the areas around it for the movement through, then it's not super helpful. So.
Which one felt like it would be a Four Seasons win? Because downtown is very different in the summer than it is in the winter. Did you feel that there were any that that felt like they were better Four Season? Because for restaurants and businesses, you don't want to just make it during those 3 months.
Well, the boards only presented beautiful weather, so I don't know. The pictures just showed sunshine and flowers.
Why didn't I think of that?
So, sorry.
I rode to Pareil one time when it was -2.
Oh, stop it. You give me pictures of kids in Finland that ride unicycles in snowstorms.
I'm sure.
Yes, and dangerous. There was snow. It was rough.
Yeah, dodging polar bears.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. So where did you come out? Are you in love with or in like with?
I mean, stripping away a lot of the practicality, probably the chicane, but I think it probably isn't it doesn't make the most sense.
Gotcha. Okay. So it's really not your.
Right, fine, sorry, yes, I suppose. Yeah.
If I may, sorry, you're done?
Yeah, go ahead.
I have a few thoughts. One is, when we talk about the bike lane, about through a lot of the meetings, you brought it up. I don't know that I think it's important to have a bike lane on Main Street, a protected bike lane. There's powers above. If we do the Littles Creek, that's another option to go. The idea of having to facilitate that is the way that cyclists get through town. I don't know that that's necessary. To Main Street is important. Letting cyclists get off their bikes and walk them around block to block to check things out is great, but I'm not sure I think that needs to be the artery that we get bikes through, especially since we now have 2 lanes of cars. We're sort of dedicated to 2 lanes of cars as well. It just feels like a lot of transit for a street that we're trying to turn into a destination. And so I think both the network and the village, if I remember correctly, had the bike lanes. I don't love that. And so,
Did the village have the bike
The
lane?
village did not know.
I did not, it was just the
The
network.
network has bike lanes on.
So I guess I don't like the network aspect of that, or that aspect of the network, I should say. The chicane, I don't know if I like or not. I mean, like, it's different. People have a hard time with different, like, it's hard to know if you'll like different until you have different, and then you, for a while, you digest it, and you go, actually, that wasn't so bad.
Different's hard.
But with that said, the idea of having more of the social spaces, they don't need to be on a curve, right? And maybe that's one of the spots where we can take the traffic lanes down to like the bare minimum, 10 feet each, or 9.5 feet, like have an extra 6 inches on each side for something. But just to try to slow traffic down, right, to keep it as slow as possible, and narrow as possible, but to have those social spaces. That's my thought. And then Alamo, I feel like if we're gonna have 2 lanes of traffic on, we're gonna have to have Alamo traffic the other way, and I mean, I agree with that. It would be great to activate it, but right now it's a bunch of parking lots. I'm not sure what you do with it. So that's my input. Eat it up, ignore it, whatever you care.
I share your feelings about the bike lane on Main. At first, I was very much, when I went into this initially, I thought the more protected bike lanes, the better, but then I changed my mind and I felt like, as you said, if we're trying to bring people there, then let's focus on that and not have different modes, whizzing past you. So if I had to pick one, the Village is my favorite, but I also want to see the improvements on Prince. So I'd like that as an add-on if we're considering swapping elements.
Is the bike lane not on Prince if we do the network? Or sorry, the village?
And I would say this is a time too, we can start mixing and matching.
Cause I think the bike lane on Prince should be there regardless.
Yes.
Like
That
that's
I
the
do agree.
only north-south way to travel.
Anybody disagree with that?
I think
So
absolutely.
I think that's one recommendation that
Absolutely.
everybody believes, is that, so you can, put that down as something we wanna do.
Stick a pin in that.
Yeah.
What about if we're putting the, what do we agree on, what about the Little's Creek enhancements?
I would say absolutely, yeah.
Any dissent on that? So there's at least.
I have like a half dissent on the Little Creek.
To me,
What
Little's
was your half dissent about, Jeff?
I question how useful it'll really be. I question, like, I have a hard time seeing how that becomes a really enjoyable place to walk around in the way that it's being pictured out. And it only goes from Prince to under the crappy low bridge over to Dish, where then you gotta make a hard left turn. And I just don't see that ever becoming a really.
I would say don't rule out in the realm of possibility of us making improvements to the underpass and to the connection to Mary Carter Greenway in the future.
And we'd have to spend, and my one caveat on this, we'd have to spend a lot of time focusing on how do we slow traffic down at the intersections there, especially if we're going at grade. Cause that's why I don't take it. I've almost been hit 2 or 3 times, people just flying down those streets. I've almost hit people and I'm not even flying. It's just, you can't see anybody as they come darting across.
There's the question too of prioritization. So I would say that I would absolutely put Little's Creek as a recommendation. But it's one of the last things that we would like that, that's how I would think of that, as saying, yes, but there's a whole bunch of priorities before that. And then maybe like if Nevada with the Village, is really activated in things, maybe some of them start turning the buildings in different directions and then it becomes a whole different dynamic at that.
Yeah, it's kind of a second order effect of revitalizing the downtown. Yeah. Okay.
So I guess, Nevada shared street.
I think that's a brilliant idea because it's a dead end, like it's underutilized now.
Does that mean we'll actually open that pedestrian bridge up again so people can actually walk across Nevada?
Yeah, the idea is that you'd replace it with a better pedestrian bridge.
Yeah, wider one, yeah. And when we went to the Criterion, we parked at our ACC and then we walked up and we jumped over the closed pedestrian bridge. Walked up, and we were like, why is this not open? But that would be so
That's why
nice.
it's not open, by the way.
Yeah.
We can send you the bridge report. There's a lot of section loss on underneath.
Oh, death.
It's a safety.
Death is.
Yes.
Dreamy.
It's really rusty under there, so.
I see, yeah.
Took your life in your hands.
So dangerous. I think, I think if the village was extended further out and Nevada connected fully through, and then Prince was a bike lane, that's a slam dunk in my opinion. I don't know about you all, but I think that would be incredible if it was. Now, the criterion is an interesting question with, like, I think that the raised intersections would absolutely make it way safer to traverse, you know, as a pedestrian and placemaking
It
and.
can be mechanical, so they can come off that.
Yes. Yes.
Well, one idea as a project team, we've discussed, instead of having, you know, 3 separate raised intersection, does that central 2 blocks just all get raised?
Yeah, that's intriguing.
Idea too.
Figuring out how to make that work, because the criterium is an amazing event. So, yeah, I think the fully connected village with the protected bike lane and Prince would be, because if like, you know, I actually agree where if you're riding up, you could get to Main Street on Prince on your bike. And then you can walk a block with your bike. That's not a huge deal.
Yeah, and maybe like Prince and Main is a hub where there's a lot of like bike storage, right? So it is a place that you can, drop your bike off and then you walk along Main Street.
And if it's like the different surface as well, across the whole street, I think that would feel more friendly to someone riding their bike with cars. You know, cars, I think would feel like I'm on a different space right now, so I'm not passing, you know, aggressively passing the people on bikes.
I'm a secondary node in this space.
I think that makes a lot of sense.
One of the things I've heard you guys say, and I'm not checking what I'm hearing, is the challenge on Main Street is actually getting it to expand north and south. And that's what I hear you talking about, is how do we expand it north and south with Prince and with Nevada, and then making Little's Creek kind of amenity that pulls people south.
And I will say, I think in the final plan, we are gonna have some recommendations on the other streets downtown besides these. I mean, these corridors were identified in our scope. You know, of course, money is always the number one issue when it comes to how to do projects, and with our funding available, we could not design every single street in the downtown district, so that's why we focused on kind of like these main corridors, but we will have some recommendations for the other corridors of just what, you know, more like bike ped safety improvements you can do. And I definitely think, you know, this is step 1 in this process, and there's no reason to say that these types of improvements can't bleed out onto these other roadways as time goes on as well, so.
Yeah, I think the amount of space dedicated to the public, in essence, on Main Street, Nevada, will be really positively impactful for the city's purses, you know, the livability, the community feeling, the connection. I think it would be really, really positive.
When you say public, I think you meant pedestrians.
Yeah, like non-throughfare, you know, like the amount of square feet that we get on those of public spaces, you know, pedestrianized spaces, would be fantastic. Like I remember going to Pearl Street and seeing, you know, kids on the play sets and, you know, the mall, like people just eating ice cream with our kids play, and that's like my hope, you know, when I think of Main Street in the downtown area, that's my hope, is that it's a place where people come and connect and hang out and things like that.
Where I celebrated my 21st birthday. Really down there.
Really? Yeah. Yeah.
37 years ago.
Yes.
All right, anything else?
So are we gonna formally make a recommendation?
I was gonna say, I could use some, as the note taker, I could use some recapping up here to make sure that I.
So I have to ask, are we not doing typed meeting minutes anymore?
No.
I don't know.
Oh, yeah, you're being recorded. Just, you know,
Okay.
Before you drop the show, give me room for career. Yeah, so these are our meeting minutes now.
A couple of things in a row, Kelly, this is what happens.
Yeah.
I know, one meeting and now poor Shane is writing on giant.
Yeah, so.
What is? feel like we've regressed. What's happened?
So yeah, so last meeting we did these with the research you guys did for Vision Zero. And so we thought, and we've included these should be up in the same place you can access the video online, but thought this is a good way for, to quickly, like, not with everything, but with some big topics like this to quickly jot down some things, so. Yeah.
Yeah, and the recordings are there.
Yeah.
It sounds like we have agreement on the Nevada Street extension. And on the Prince Street bike enhancement and that. It sounds like for the most part, we like the village option the best. Is that, am I stating that correctly?
Yeah, I mean, with the, appropriate asterisks after.
That we reserve the right to adopt elements of other designs that we like.
I'm sorry, for my, how is the village different than the chicane? Is it basically the chicane without the chicane? Is it like?
Well, the village was the way less public space, if I remember correctly. Is that right? Than the chicane?
I think Jeff, you kind of hit the nail on the head of the chicane, does that weaving, and so there's really large public plazas, and then on the other side, it's a little smaller, where the village kind of cuts it in half.
So the village is the straight chicane as opposed to the curvy.
Sure.
The non-chicane.
I do like the amount of space of the chicane, but the village, like, there's sections of that where crazy amounts for parking and, from the looks of it, cause it's so narrow if it went from like Melting Pot to the bridge, of that would be amazing. But it doesn't look like that's the case.
I mean, personally, I like the chicane. I like all the public spaces. I just don't like the actual curving part of it. But I mean, I have to imagine if you curve this way, you gain space this side, but if you got rid of it, you gain the space on the other side, right? I mean, it's still the same size street. You're not getting.
Exactly, and that's where the
street.
village, it's kind of just like you cut it in the center.
So I like the chicane, but get rid of the curvy part, because the way I would put it.
And less parts.
So the village.
Well, this is what I'm saying. So I'm saying.
So it's the village with no parking. It's really what it is.
Yeah, I like a little less parking
Very little.
and more public space.
So is that kind of the consensus of the group?
So you disagree with me on that?
Well, I think we would be remiss to get rid of all the parking down there.
I wouldn't say all, but yeah. It has to be like ADA and things like that, like unloading zones and things like that have to be there, so.
Yeah. I mean, there's not much in either one of them. You're not gonna be parking on Main Street to go to a Main Street business in any of these designs, I don't think. As long as the.
It could happen, cause I mean, all of them are maintaining some parking.
You'd be lucky if
You'd be lucky, right, yeah, you'd be lucky, but it could happen.
Well, that's where the parking management part comes in, because that does need to be a part of these plans. Like, if we are gonna get rid of all that parking, we do need to have a plan of how.
Donald Shoup, the parking czar. A lot of literature on this.
He does.
Yeah. And then on the village one, it doesn't show anything on Alamo, but Alamo is still there and still,
Okay, good.
it's still 2 lanes. But we just choose not to highlight that, in color on this illustration. Okay.
In the village, what did Alamo look like? I don't remember.
A street.
It's a red light.
It was thoroughfare. There's gotta be a table.
It's the parking area now, all the parking, one long parking lot.
We go straight to Nevada? Okay. Sorry, I'm not trying to give you all a headache.
I think it's more trees.
More trees.
That's a pretty tree-y street.
Yeah, sorry,
Cause I do think there should be some activation on Alamo.
yeah, so I think
Bump outs
we
at the
didn't necessarily highlight it in here, but it would, I think would get a similar treatment to the chicane concept, where there is still some streetscape improvement, some green infrastructure, stormwater management, a little, tightening up the travel lanes and parking to provide more pedestrian space, but we should write that down that, yeah, Alamo needs to have.
And I feel like that's a dangerous spot for pedestrians too, because there's so much parking there that you can't really see as a pedestrian until you go out a little bit. So some bump outs at intersections and shortening the distance that you have to cross for those would be really impactful, for safety and for the feel. I think I just saw that on Church at Stern Park and it was fantastic. The new temporary stuff that just got put up there on, I remember Griffith's Church, yeah.
Church and,
Right south of Stern Park, yeah.
That's like,
Oh, yeah.
Stern Parkway goes up there, yeah, and there's the new bump outs and all the.
Stern and like Spotswood.
Yeah, that was fantastic. I just rode through that.
yeah.
There's more to come there too.
did you add that? Just last
We
week?
should drive by, yeah. It's really
Kids
good.
crew did it, not in last week, so.
Yeah, we have some more,
Yeah.
I think a little more striping out there and some more signage to add.
We should set up a scavenger hunt of all the new things that have gone in.
Yeah.
Yeah, see, like, first one to bring their bingo card to the city with all.
Well,
love that.
I spied you two climbing a pole today to hang up some.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, and I was like, hey! And I was going
Shane's trying not to fall off the ladder.
You guys are busy.
So it sounds like we are in for the village concept with the additional comments that we said on Nevada and Prince. And maybe 50-50 on Little's Creek, but that's gonna come as the
Byproduct.
tail end, the byproduct of the revitalization as it begins to spread off of Main Street. Assuming we're all successful with this, then that might be where you see more of that. It reminds me, I don't know how many of you are familiar with Crested Butte, but there's a little creek that runs through Crested Butte. And as Main Street, Elk Avenue gets a lot of development and rents get too high, then some of the businesses have started to move off and have actually started facing that little creek that runs, I don't know what the name of the creek is, but that runs through Crested Butte. So maybe that's too high a bar to shoot for that, but that would be kind of a neat.
You guys, right in there.
Yeah.
There's the creek.
Yeah, that's a good vision for Little's Creek, yeah.
Yeah.
I think for me, like, if the protected bike lane was not on Prince, I would be wildly perplexed as to why we made that decision, you know? Like, that's kind of the most obvious one, I feel like. Itself.
Let's just pretend we're at Christmas.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
I'm not holding out hope that Little's Creek will look like that.
I mean, that's also like.
I'm not
that's an
telling you
actual-
I'm not telling you I don't want it. I'm just saying I don't think it'll happen.
That's actually a river. whereas Little
Listen,
Creek is like a drainage, you know?
Ski area on Jackass Hill, come on. All right.
Municipal.
So we have some, I guess, some input that you've got to take back.
Yeah, can I recap that real quick?
Sure.
Alright, so I have, as a group, I'm just summarizing kind of group agreement. Protected bike lanes on Prince, we're all thumbs up. Little's Creek improvements, but I have 4.5 versus a half, or maybe like not second priority. Is that, I wanna make sure I'm capturing
We
it.
don't want to record that you are of half a mind.
Pessimistic, maybe?
Supreme Court decision with Jeff dissenting.
One dubious.
You can write your own sheet there.
I'll say not first priority,
Yeah, right.
some skepticism.
Right.
Okay.
Follow on.
Pick it up in 20 years and talk about it.
Okay.
Your deal.
For the shared street on Nevada,
All the way up to Main Street.
all the way, okay, that was, yeah, I gotta move my phone.
Yeah, there's no reason for that to stop.
Alamo needs activation regardless of what happens everywhere else, right? We can't just.
Yeah.
Alright. Yeah.
Similar treatment, yeah, to,
Bump outs.
yeah. sort of the safety treatments that are gonna make it attractive.
And then I have the village is the preferred alternative with some significant asterisks.
Yeah.
That go along with that opinion.
And
Minimal parking.
there's a lot of parking.
Yeah. Minimized parking, or at least that's, I don't know if that's everyone's decision, but that was expressed.
Yeah, that's certainly a prevalent opinion.
I'll stick with, I want the straight chicane.
Jeff wants the street.
I think that's an oxymoron.
It's hard to tell on Google Street View, with the chicane, but this is Grand Junction. You can start to see a curve and it creates, you know, these types of gathering spaces here.
There's only one lane of traffic each way too.
'Cause it's two-way.
Yeah.
So it'd be the same.
No, I get it, but
The same, only different.
But in Grand Junction has about 50% more room building face to building face than we do on Main Street. So
50% more, you just
it's
said?
like 97
Yeah,
feet
I
in
mean-
Grand Junction, we have like 65, 67.
Oh, yeah, that's a big difference.
They can do, yeah, angled.
Angle parking.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, and we've got about 50 feet of right of way on Little's Creek is what a rapid map says, so.
50 feet?
Yeah.
I would not have guessed that.
Right, yeah. And that's a rapid map, so it's, you know, few feet of variation there, but what is it? A rapid map. It's the Arapahoe County's assessor's map, so you can put the parcels, like overlay it on the aerial, and then you can measure, so it's not like survey level data, but you know, enough to get an idea, so.
A map's a good name.
Yeah, that is a good.
All right.
All right.
Good.
Who's taking it? Thank you, Ken.
Well, one question, so how does this get communicated to council? Do you want us to transmit these notes and type something up and then send it to council? I don't know, Brent, if you have any suggestions. In the past, like when this board has done memos, right, like the board is, and it's been extended over several meetings, but there's been a memo typed up, sent to, you know, members of council, copied, staff, city manager's office. Been done in the past, but probably time is of the essence on this one.
So a couple of thoughts. Since Robert's here and heard a lot of this, I think that's one potential corridor or one channel of communication. The other, though, is that it's gonna go back through the process and come to council as a recommendation, as a fully formed recommendation. And if it is in line with what we recommended, then I think that might be enough. But correct me if you think we should memorialize this. I'm happy to do that and deliver it.
As the conduit, whether it's memorialized or not, I would want to have a set of bullets that I can read during my report out. And it can just be Shane and I writing notes and making sure they reflect completely what you said. But I would want to just make sure we have an email that we say this is what we've agreed to, and then I'll read it during my report out during
All right.
if that's a.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Yeah, we'll have to, you know, ECC folks for all, you know, so we don't doesn't constitute a meeting that we haven't posted, but yeah, we can type something up.
Yeah, but if it's us three, then it's,
Yes,
we're in
yeah,
the same,
right.
so we're good.
All right. Okay.
And I just say like, I trust you, Tom, like that you will relay the.
This time.
This time. Don't push it. Like
Another parking lot. And I recommend it.
if you could write it down. Shane, if you could write that up into an email that you send to Tom and Robert, if Tom goes, my perspective, you guys speak up. If Tom says, yep, that properly reflects what we said, I'm good. And you have your email.
High levels of trust, yeah.
Okay. All right. Very good.
Great, thank you. And then that email will probably also go to the planning
I'm
committee.
gonna try. Well, I'm counting on Shane.
Oh, I'm not gonna read what Shane sends me. I'm just gonna say, sure, sounds good.
All right.
And
That almost take 2 hours. Wow.
It did. We got 15 minutes left, so why don't we let you give it your readout?
So there's two things I wanted to talk about, kind of, or two different things. One are just some kind of things I've learned lately, and then just as your role of being a communicator around what's going on in the council, I want to tell you some of the things that are important. So one of the interesting things I already talked to Shane about is I visited with the Public Works Manager in West Lafayette, Indiana, which is a town that's about the same size as well. And a lot more bike because of the university. Has slightly different weather, but they have protected bike lanes. And I said, so tell me about your experiences with protected bike lanes. And he told me two different things. And this is an FYI, this isn't an action item. He said, first of all, they bought a specialized machine because they couldn't just plow the snow, they have to remove the snow. And so they got a machine that had a snow blower on the front, and they would like do the old cart and truck to get, and I thought that was interesting. And then the other thing is they've had numerous 6 accidents of left turns going across the bike lanes. And that like people turning left don't always see the people in the bike lane. And that's a real source of danger. And you know, you've seen it, they're at the Broadway intersection, Broadway, and I don't know where it is, where they put a light on the bike lane to stop people so the left turns could go through. But that was that's just an FYI, that's not something I heard. The other thing, I want to kind of repeat what I told you guys. We had kind of a budget update for the council this week, and the budget update was, you know, we're mostly dependent on sales tax. And starting in the fourth quarter last year, sales tax growth was less than we expected. So sales tax is still growing, but less than we expected. And so we've made a few kind of slowdowns on staffing because of that. The other thing is what I also said is that I think what happened when I first got on council is we used 3A money and things associated with 3A money to bump up staffing within Public Works and bump up staffing within the police department. But I think over the next couple of years, the real action is going to be in the capital budget. And the capital budget is really going to be the 3A money. And that's where we're going to be making decisions about new things. As one project rolls over, new projects are going to roll on. And that's someplace in this committee's role of thinking about capital planning. I just encourage us all to kind of try to pay attention to where that is, because this is a capital project that we're talking about. And we're going to have the Kettering Park plan, we have this plan, we're going to have the Littleton Boulevard overlay. We're going to have some other kind of street plans that are coming forward. And within those plans, we're going to be prioritizing which parts we dedicate our money to. And there's really, the prioritization, I think, comes from kind of 3 places. One comes from kind of public input, if you count the council as public input. Second is staff, because staff is going to be doing that. The third, what we've been doing as a city in the last couple of years is what places are we going to be able to get matching grants? And those are going to kind of and just so put that as context for your decision-making going forward. Then completely unrelated things that are just on our agenda that I want you to know. So I think you guys have heard about the Woolhurst and Meadowood trailer parks that are getting bought up by an outside investor. And the prices they're paying make it very clear that the rent is going to be raised in those trailer parks. And the end result is that, you know, those are currently low-income housing, part of our low-income housing within the city. And while if the sale goes through, we're still trying to work with those communities to see if they can buy it themselves. But even if they buy it themselves, the price is still going to require some raising of the rent, I think. But it highlights a huge problem right now for the city, where we actually have more affordable housing than any other jurisdiction kind of from our place south, right? We have a pretty good stock of affordable housing as the suburbs go in Denver. And we don't have any strategy for retaining affordable housing. Our current strategy is that we invest money into South Metro Housing Authority, and they are going like gangbusters. They've bought 2 pieces of property. They've got another piece of property they're trying to think about. And then they get money, grants to build affordable housing. So we have a build forward strategy right now in the city.
Retention.
But we don't have a retention strategy. And so that's going to be a challenge that I think the council is going to be thinking about over the next year and learning about. Like, I don't know jack about housing retention. And so we're going to be learning about that. And then just the things that I've talked about, the council's takes about 6 weeks off in June and July. And then we spent hours talking about whether our dispensaries should stay open until midnight. If you have an opinion on that, you're welcome to share it with me, because that's an issue we're spending way too much time on.
Dispensaries. Yeah.
Who cares?
Yeah, I don't have a.
I didn't expect the Transportation Mobility Committee to have an opinion on that, but I had to complain about how much time of my life has been spent on hours, and you guys,
I don't think any vice is prevented from them staying 10 or to 12. Like it's.
I'm sorry, I'm your meeting on a minor point. I'm done. Thank you for letting me report out, but I'm gonna try to just tell you guys about things that we're doing, because that's important, just having you know what's going on in council.
I think that's fantastic. I appreciate that, two-way communication. It's huge.
Thank you.
What kind of sales tax shortage are we facing?
We're not really facing, I mean, we're facing the
Less growth than.
the less growth, so I think we've trimmed like $1 million off our budget. But I'm also learning that we budget really conservatively, and we usually end up with $1 million at the end of the year, so I'm not.
Maybe it's a wash.
Yeah, there's not a crisis. I just think sales tax hasn't grown as fast. But if the developments that are currently planned occur on mineral, then there's a whole, that's not in our model. And so, but, oh, that's a different conversation we'll have, but it just,
Well, it sounds like the dispensaries need to stay open on Tuesday. That's part of that sales tax revenue.
I think we figured out we get 1.3 million a year out of our dispensaries right now.
Another 2 hours?
Not insignificant. So one thing about the mobile home parks
Yeah.
is, you know, I've gone to a lot of council meetings and spoken to them. When people oppose developments for like, you know, $500,000 apartments and things coming in, or townhomes and things like that. I do think that people buying mobile home parks is just outright, you know, where they come in, they raise the rents, and those people suffer, you know, and there's not like, they're usually not enhancing anything. It's usually just a money grab, you know, and they just raise the rents. And so that is unfortunate, you know, I don't have a solution or anything, but I do think that that's a very legitimate concern that those citizens are raising, because it's not making anything better. It's just, that is a true lining of the pockets, whereas at least when they come in and build a new, you know, apartment complex, like they're gonna be building one behind my house, there's more homes, you know, they're like, you know, and that's a positive thing. This is just renting, you know.
I'm not saying that I'm for it, but keep in mind that the goal for a lot of these guys is to price them out of the market so they can then convert it to a development for townhouses and apartments and other things.
And when you have Toll Brothers that just is building right up to their property line, it makes it very attractive to convert that to. But certainly, I think if we can, if you have home ownership, you're in a much more defensible position. Any things like an apartment, they can raise the rent, and you're on the razor's edge again, and rents are pretty high right now. So I don't know what we can do to promote home ownership, but.
Well, that is part of the conversation. The code word we're using kind of right now is the missing middle. Because I think the issue with home ownership is anybody with $1 million is a homeowner, and nobody with 50,000 is a homeowner. But right now, the market is not providing the $200,000 to $600,000 houses, and that's, at least that will be part of the conversation going forward. I also think, and this is my editorial, is that we're gonna have a lot of apartments that could be condos if it wasn't for the current set of liability law.
Absolutely.
Well, we're all in agreement. Nobody seems to be able to do anything about it.
And I was hopeful that this legislative session would address that, but it did not.
Thank God for trial lawyers. Because they stopped it.
I don't know.
The plaintiff's bar doesn't want to give up their, that was my editorial.
Yeah.
Sorry. Okay, well,
There's a couple things we do need to touch on. So we can push the future joint meetings to the next meeting or future meetings. One thing we do need to talk about is a joint study session with council. So the date that has been floated right now is July 23rd, and the focus that we're hearing is Vision Zero. As a reminder for what we've done from Vision Zero, which we have that summary we'll go over if you guys want to stay like 2 extra minutes. And then next month, Emily Kleinfelter, who is currently Dr. Cog's Vision Zero planner. She's gonna come and present on what is happening regionally with Vision Zero. At that point, she will actually be our transportation planner. So we hired her for an open position, so we're pretty jazzed about that. But kind of the question for you guys is, the expectation from what we're hearing is it would be your guys' presentation to council on kind of a Vision Zero recommendation. So I think the question is if we're kind of wrapping up the education portion of Vision Zero in June, does that leave enough time to get something together for a presentation in July? And that's kind of up to you guys, and staff will react accordingly. So,
If we didn't do July, when?
It's July 23rd.
Right.
July 23rd, yeah, is the current date. I mean, I don't know that, I'm sure Brett's pulling up the calendar right now. So I know we being staff, have a presentation planned in September to kind of wrap up. We have one in June, which we'll talk about at a study session, but then another one in September to kind of talk about the outcomes of like the school safety evaluation and the traffic calming evaluation. So that's one we could potentially partner on. I think it's kind of open. But right now, the July 23rd date is what's being floated.
So it's being floated, yeah, but we want to make sure that you're comfortable with a fairly short turnaround in terms of education and being able to prepare a presentation.
And I guess, and Brent's, tell me if I'm wrong, but my perception is what we're hearing is council would be looking for like a recommendation on do we move forward with Vision Zero? So it wouldn't just be like, tell us what you want necessarily, but like, what should we do?
My concern, a month turnaround is fine for doing a presentation. My concern is, are we gonna feel like we're ready to make a recommendation at the end of our next meeting?
And remember, you do not have a meeting between your June meeting and that council.
That's what I'm saying, and like, that would be it, like.
So we would pretty much,
The July one, we could.
Your July meeting?
Just so we had two. I think we should.
Yeah, that's a possibility.
The
Well,
December
we
one.
can always have we can always have impromptu is the wrong word because we have to announce it. But
study session.
an additional meeting. Well, all of our meetings are study sessions now, but
Yeah.
another
I feel
study
like
session.
We have what, 2 times 12, 24 hours total of commitment? Like, I would not mind having another session to get this ready, because this is really impactful.
Yeah.
Potentially. Yeah.
I would say I talked to the city manager about the things that we've talked about in the past, and I feel like the conversation we had last time was a little bit nuanced, like it was, we like this part of Vision Zero, we have questions about that part. And I'm confident the council is open to a nuanced kind of thing. It doesn't have to be all in. I think the nuance and if you guys have nuance, please feel free to run with
Or
it.
even just as simple as like pros and cons.
Yeah. Or this part really makes sense for Littleton, this part I'm not sure it makes sense for them.
Okay. My inclination is that we could probably do it on the 23rd. We would be a topic on your meeting on the 23rd, or
It would be a study session.
it would be a study session.
So and that's good, because that means that we have a conversation with you versus,
Something more formal.
yeah.
That'd be fantastic, I think, yeah.
Okay. And then, would we follow that up with a transportation meeting 2 days later?
As it's scheduled now, yes.
Yeah.
That feels like.
That feels like, that feels a bit much, to do those back to back, but I would certainly, be in favor of taking advantage of the 23rd to do that, joint session so that we do get a chance to, wrap these recommendations into some sort of a presentation. And I think we should take that on in our June meeting, and then, probably want to take one more, we might need a little bit more time to try to really feel like it was ready to present.
Do we wanna, sorry,
I was gonna say, what if we moved the board meeting to the week before?
Like the 4th of July or something?
Yeah, so if I may. Packets really need to be done internally 2 weeks in advance of the meeting. So that staff and the manager's office have a chance to vet them.
really.
So you would pen, I guess, well, that's only 1 week away.
What if we extended, this might be really unpopular, but what if we extended our June one?
Standard our what?
June meeting, instead of having another additional meeting, we just met a little bit longer or, you know,
Yeah,
and then cancel the July one.
Yeah.
2 days after.
I'm with you on that. So our June meeting, is, let's see, 27th?
7th.
Yeah, I'd say let's plan to try to make, we may be able to wrap this, into a presentation in 2 hours. We should, this group
Well,
works pretty
keep
well.
in mind, we were planning on having Emily present to you about Vision Zero at the June meeting as well.
Like
So-
finishing
She's
up
an
our.
expert, yeah.
Okay.
She's an expert in Vision Zero.
And so she's gonna, what would you envision that would take about, do you think she would want to spend an hour or?
Well, that depends on how long we want to discuss.
Oh, gosh, it could go on, huh?
What if we had Emily's meeting on the 20th? So we had an extra meeting and then we used our
In June.
scheduled meeting on June 27th to put together a presentation.
Maybe the only way we can get it done.
Anyone else, does that cause?
Is Emily available on the 20th and are the rest of us? That's the next.
And then we use that and then we cancel our July meeting.
I'm good with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can reach out and see.
This is over.
We will be working here at that point. Start date is the 10th, so. And that's public now, so we can say it. We've known for a while.
Let her know what her schedule is. I think of the options we've kicked around, that makes probably the most sense to have her present to us on the 20th. Then we meet on the 27th, wrap it up, and then have the meeting with council, the study session with council on the 23rd of July.
Sounds great.
And then we cancel the meeting that would have been 2 days following.
I probably won't make either of the June meetings,
Okay.
but.
So we'll actually be able to get some stuff done, is what you're saying?
It'll be a great surprise for you on the 23rd.
We'll have a recording for you.
Yes, you will, that's right, that's right. I definitely can't make the 27th, and I don't know if I can make the 20th or not, I need to.
I will not be available on the 20th.
Okay.
I'll be at the Rolling Stones.
Wow, wow.
Yeah.
Priorities,
That's
huh?
if, they're still able to hobble to the stage.
I bet they were.
We're a 4 million show.
Yeah, well, I mean, we'll,
And are you all available July 23rd?
Good question too.
My son's 17th birthday, but yes.
anniversary.
Yeah.
How much fun will he have at a Vision Zero?
He'll have a
City Council.
I would prefer not the 23rd, but I can make it.
Yeah, I mean, that's
Well-
another question too.
Yeah, the 23rd is tentatively scheduled. You can always push it if you feel like you need more time.
And we do study sessions every 2 weeks, so then the next option would be 2 weeks.
If you feel July 23rd is too soon.
You don't have to, it's not like it's the one bite at the apple, right?
Right.
Well, that's what, yeah, so I was saying, if we don't do it the 23rd, when.
Could we do August 6th? August 6th is actually for me, like, I like having another couple weeks to prep, but
It would be August
13th?
That may be an option. There's currently nothing scheduled.
For the
regular-
13th?
For the regular meeting on August 6th, so.
Oh, for the regular meeting.
I thought you said.
I don't want the regular.
I thought you said the schedule.
I think we're thinking about the study session.
There's nothing scheduled for the August 6th meeting on the tentative calendar, so that could be turned into a study
Oh,
session.
yeah, it could, we do have that option for sure.
I misunderstood. I thought you said it was every session was every 2 weeks.
Yeah, so the first and third are regular council meetings, and the second.
It's not exactly every 2 weeks.
June
Typically.
20th. I'm gonna go see Mother in Cave Town at Red Rocks, so, yeah.
Well, this is lovely. Can we get everyone's concert schedule? Let's take that.
Yeah, so several options in August.
So if you keep the July meeting that's scheduled, then you would have 2 meetings to prepare. That July meeting, you would have to finish it to give the 2 weeks to do in August.
And we could do coordination between too, if we needed to, right?
Right.
Especially with
Assign tasks, right?
Yeah.
And then come back to that July meeting, sorry, not coordination.
So if we kind of ventilate this schedule a little bit to give give ourselves a little breathing room. The study session with council, looks like, it would be the 6th of August would be our next,
Based on the tentative calendar, and I'd, verify this with the city manager's office, but possibilities of turning the regular meeting on August 6th into a study session. There may be space on the already scheduled study session on the 13th. And even August 20th is light right now.
okay?
And we have been, if we have a light council meeting, we have been tacking on study sessions to some of those, so that we can do that.
So all in favor of the 13th, who can make it on the 13th? We got a pretty good, yeah. Why don't we do that? Why don't we point to that?
We'll check that with the city manager's office.
And that way, we have a little bit more time to prepare and still have a chance to, I think, provide a
And the more nuanced and thoughtful, the better.
My assumption is that like for Project Downtown, our recommendations might be somewhat of a footnote. But for the Vision Zero, our advice actually could hold weight, some significant weight presumably for that one.
Yes, I think that's true.
Yeah. So. it
Okay,
seems
so we're
like-
scratching
yeah.
June 20th.
all right.
So we're not doing June 20th though.
So we're not doing June 20th.
And I will say, Matt, I will take this back to the project team.
That wasn't a dig on you.
I will say, all of your recommendations are in line with what we've heard from. So.
Pull the curve.
Handle the chicane.
They
The
can't.
curve really does slow cars down. But it
Blow
also-
in your minds.
Yeah. Well, people do go off the road when there are curves. They
Not unheard of.
can't handle it sometimes, so. All right, well, listen, we're at our 2-hour limit. I'd like to, respect everybody's time. Are there any pressing, announcements either from staff? Richard, we've heard from you. If there's anything else, feel free. Anything from, others, board members? Anything from?
I think we're just excited to have Emily come on board, so.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You
and,
guys will get a really good education on Vision Zero from her, I think, so.
and we are going to council to present on the Safer Streets Littleton update on June 11th, if anyone wants to come in person or tune in.
That was June 11th for council. For street.
Okay.
Yeah, good update, yeah.
All right.
Quick questions.
Sure.
Is there Public Works Director?
Actively searching.
Posted currently. Are you interested?
I was just gonna say, I'll get you my resume.
Yeah.
Your life would get a lot worse.
I did want to say, I already kind of mentioned it, but it was fantastic to see just south of Stern Park there, the bump outs and the shortening of the distance that people have to walk across the sidewalks and things. So for your staff and, everyone, that was fantastic to see.
I haven't seen it, but I'm excited to see it.
Yeah.
We had a good laugh today because our streets crew lead apparently just bought an e-bike. And so we're joking that he's gonna be like.
Kool-Aid.
Pushing bikes more than Emily. When she comes on board.
Yeah.
Drug. It is a gateway drug.
All right, thanks, everybody.
Thanks all.
Turn off the recording. This party.
Yes, yeah. I have to write the record on my hand. So I remember.
So Shane and Tom, what if on the agenda you just give me a spot every time? Is that okay?
That'd be great. Yeah.
Obviously, I just already told you, I've asked for a spot every time and then told you I'll mix the next meeting. So I understand there's a little bit of,
Well, you got an envelope, so mail it in. Thank you. That, sharing some of those things that you're aware of and that we may not.